Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Conrad Ish, Communications Director for the Wexford County Republican Committee, also known as the Wexford County GOP. I'm pleased to announce Dr. Rob Steele, our RNC National Committeeman, and the reason you are all here today. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Steele. If you could give us a brief personal background and overview of your RNC position before getting into the meat and potatoes. The floor is yours.
Yeah, here we go. Thanks everybody for coming on. A lot of familiar faces, and glad you could make it on Sunday afternoon. Everybody's pumped for the Lions, I assume. Maybe watching that. I'm actually heading out tonight to the Turning Point Action Conference, which is being done alongside the RNC meeting this week. So I've got a PowerPoint here I'm going to run through, and there's going to be a lot more on the slides than I'm going to talk about. I'm just going to go through them. You'll just be able to see there's a lot going on. We can slow down on anything you want. Put that in the chat for Conrad, because I'll go to full screen here, I think is what will happen. And first thing I'm going to do on the PowerPoint is go through some background, then cover what the RNC does. In their different segments of data, fundraising, election integrity, and ground game, and then also a little bit about what I've done on the RNC in the time I've been there. And then, of course, with my election come up, I'll tell you why you should vote for me again. But let me see if I can share screen here. And what are you seeing there now? Are you seeing half of a screen, or are you seeing all of a screen?
We're seeing your screen.
Okay, and let me go all the way up to the beginning, and I'm going to go to full screen. So I'm not going to actually. I don't know that I'm going to be able to see all your stuff. Oh, yep, I can. All right. So yeah, like I said, I'm going to cover a little background, what we do, what's coming up, what I've done on the RNC, and do some questions. So some of you I've known for quite a while, but haven't really heard actually my background. Lifetime NRA guy, used to work UAW, did a lot of different stuff. You can see I've been endorsed by basically every conservative important group or organization at various elections for either federal or statewide elections. And I think one of the funniest things on this slide, because you have a lot of new delegates, of course, and new delegates also often are told anybody who's around now must be a bad insider, no good person. And so obviously you can see I've got a conservative background, but if you look at the bottom there in bold there, twice the Detroit News endorsed a Democrat over me because I was too conservative for both federal and state elections. So there's not much doubt about my past conservatism. In medicine, I've been an activist as well. Not a member of the AMA. I'm a member of their opponent, which is focused on private practice and the doctor-patient relationship. I'm a founding board member of Docs for Patient Care, which came up around the Obamacare time, fight for private practice and keep that out. Did lots of work on that and helped found that organization. And next line there, the American Board of Internal Medicine is a classic swamper insider organized medicine group, and they were actually pushing money to various professional organizations. For example, to the OB-GYN group, they were given tens of millions of dollars for them to push vaccines to their patients. And we're actually threatening to take away board certification status if you spoke out for your patients on having a doctor-patient relationship, informed consent, and prescribing medications you chose that were already approved. When it comes to COVID, been involved in that from the beginning as well. COVID was actually, the spring of 2020, January, February. And in May of 2020, I had an op-ed in the Detroit News about opening the state up, putting the kids back in school. And of course, that was very controversial, but of course I was right. Dennis Prager heard that. I was on for 3 segments with him. I was supposed to be on 1 segment with him, but he just kept me over and over and over. And the main topic there was, why organized medicine had collapsed, having the federal government as their paymaster, and organized medicine pushing all kinds of information on COVID and vaccines that didn't have data. So anyway, we'll keep going here. Started when I was in my 20s, And some of you older folks will remember the 55-mile-an-hour speed limit. I was involved in getting that repealed, a bunch of other stuff way back. And then, in fact, this group that repealed the 55, we're still fighting red light cameras, speed cameras, trying to protect your black box in your car, and trying to prevent vehicle mandates. So that group I'm still involved with, still going. Joined the Heritage in my 20s. Was a founding board member of the Southeast Michigan Committee. Been a member for 40 years. And Heritage, most of you have heard about, but maybe don't remember that in Reagan's presidency, they had the mandate for leadership. And Reagan did about 60%. He ran his presidency out of the Heritage Mandate for Leadership program. Trump did the same. Trump, in his effort with Heritage, had about 65% of their ideas implemented or attempted in the first year. Heritage had about 70 members in Trump's transition and administration. And they have a new one out for 2025 called Project 2025. 2010, I know Trucker, maybe a couple other people remember, I ran for Congress as a Tea Party guy. And here's the key thing that I've been doing all this activism for 25, 30 years before I ran for Congress, but I had never been to a Republican meeting. So I went to my first Republican meeting after I ran for Congress. I had never been involved in any kind of partisan politics. We did great, even though I lost against the longest serving congressman in history. We did unbelievably well. We're ahead still at 1 a.m. Finished higher above the baseline than any candidate in the country, legislative baseline, and brought in 5 new state reps plus Pat Kobeck in the Senate, and that passed right to work. And in fact, I won the Trump, what is now called the Trump Coalition. All the UAW blue collar guys with my blue collar background and being a gun guy and a car guy. That was a piece of cake for me. During that time, I was on all of these radio shows here, Hannity TV, radio, endorsed by Levin on his show multiple times, all those other people. 2012 and 14, I was top vote getter for University of Michigan Regent. Had some great things that, I was working with Larry Arnn on making the founding documents a requirement for graduation at University of Michigan, getting the Chinese off campus. Think about it. I was talking about getting the Chinese off campus in 2012 and about getting rid of federal loans. And hey, if you think Weiser's an insider swamper, I knocked him out twice. I kept going. Obviously, after that, Tea Party wanted me to run for Senate. I've been doing all this other stuff with dozens and dozens of free market healthcare and education reform talks, hundreds of appearances on behalf of candidates, including Trump. And for the more recent thing, I think one thing that's really telling, if you want to see how I look at Washington, D.C. and whether they're swampers, in 2023, I worked with the chief of staff of multiple U.S. senators to encourage a Senator Scott challenge McConnell. He eventually did it. And he only got 10 votes, but the signal has been sent. This will be McConnell's last time as majority leader. So we need to get the U.S. Senate, and that's a critical thing, obviously. The nominating process, I just wanted to cover that real quick. The Democrats tried to change the law, get us down to 12 delegates. And frankly, if it wasn't for me, that's what we'd have. We'd have 12 delegates. And but I was able to maneuver all 55. And not only that, but get 39 out to the precinct delegates. So this is a critical thing. New delegates and all delegates, we want more power, we want more say. And so we were able to move 39 delegates out of control of crossover Democrat voters trying to rig our side of the outcome and put it in a precinct delegates where we know everyone's conservative. So in February 27, we're going to have a regular public primary. 16 delegates will be allocated at that time. 1 delegate for every 6.25% of the vote. And you need at least 12%. When this was all written, there were many candidates. There's actually been 6 candidates file and pay their fee to be in our congressional district caucuses. And I don't know how many. Obviously, Chris Christie's out. Vivek's not going to be there for being a candidate. He might be there for Trump. So there's a few that might be there. But, with just Trump and Haley being the main candidates, they're both going to get over 12.5%. I expect Trump to get, well over 50%. Then we have March 2nd, and this is the key thing for the precinct delegates. We have congressional district caucuses, and each of the 13 congressional district caucuses will allocate delegates to the presidential candidates of their choice. So if a presidential candidate in your congressional district gets 50%, they will get all 3 delegates. If there's a plurality winner, the plurality winner gets 2 delegates, second place gets 1. Frankly, I expect Trump to get probably all 39. I don't see him getting less than 2. We'll see. March 2nd is also a National Committeeman, National Committee woman vote. Plus, any of you who are interested in being one of the 3 national delegates or alternates will run at your congressional district to be one of those 3 delegates or alternates to go to the national convention in Milwaukee. So that's the layout of the primary situation and the upcoming meetings for your local and district meetings. Your county district, your county convention is on February 15th. We'll advance from there to this March 2nd congressional district caucus. Okay, so what the heck does the RNC do anyway? Here's the rules. This is just the front page of the rules. This is the format where RNC members look at it. At the top of rule number 1 is about organization. Number 2, organizing the committee, what happens with vacancies, etc. The second part is how do you hold convening the national delegation, the national convention. How do you seat delegates? How are they bound? That sort of thing. And then the third section of the RNC rules is how you actually, what actually happens at the national convention. So the reality of what the rules are for the Republican National Committee, they are based entirely on nominating the Republican nominee for the presidential office in the United States. How the committee's formed, how people make it to the convention, how you run the convention. That's it. As regards to these rules intersecting with state parties, they intersect on 2 different rules. Here for the National Committeeman and Committeewoman, how they're seated, and then also how the national delegates are bound, allocated, and selected to go to the national convention. Now, you'll see here under the proceedings, the national convention writes the platform. So if you're one of these national delegates, you'll go there, you'll be on a committee. You'll be on the rules committee, you'll be on the platform committee, you'll be on some sort of committee, and then you will help write the platform for the Republican National Party. If you're on the rules committee, you will help write the rules for the National Committee. If you look over on the left-hand side of the screen, you see, as adopted by the 2020 Republican National Convention. Then on April 14th, they were amended to take over the debates. And so that was really the only change. So that's really what the rules say. But do we do more than that? Yes, of course we do. This is what else we do. We work on fundraising, we work on the ground game, we work on data, we work on election integrity. So I'm just going to very briefly cover each of those 4 areas. The key thing here is this is stuff we make available to candidates. Some candidates don't use it at all. Some candidates use all of it. And so we just have no control over that. And I might, and so we'll cover that. Now, what the RNC doesn't do, because this is a very confusing thing. You hear in the conservative press or on TV, the RNC did this, that, or the other, and they, supported somebody in the primary, or they don't give any donations to the right candidates, or whatever. But the bottom line is that we aren't actually involved in the primaries at all. And you may have just seen that there was a proposal maybe to have the RNC name Trump the presumptive nominee, and that got some pushback because we're not involved in primaries. So, he can fight it out as he should, and, he'll win, and that's fine. In the state of Michigan, there have only been 2 times in my 7 years where the RNC has formally backed somebody, and that was, you had to be a helicopter pilot. So that was John James and Tom Barrett, and the only way this can happen is by Rule 11. Rule 11 means that all 3 members of the RNC from that state, meaning the National Committeeman, Committeewoman, and State Chair, must agree to back or say that candidate is the best candidate. And so, but even when that happens, the RNC doesn't really do anything else. The candidate is just able to go to the donors and say, hey, I'm the RNC's chosen candidate. But the RNC doesn't give money to candidates. We don't pick them, we don't recruit them, we don't hire their staff, we don't do any of that stuff. Candidates do what they want. We work on the ground game, give them tools and infrastructure to fundraise, and then fight now for election integrity, which we'll cover in more detail. So let me just get all this stuff up here. We hear this a lot. The term now in this election cycle is the RNC is a bunch of globalists. We'll cover that. WinRed, hey, that's no good. We shouldn't ever donate to somebody that has WinRed. Primaries, we covered that. No ground game elections, we'll cover that. And election integrity, we'll cover that. So let's just cover some of this stuff. Are we a bunch of RNC establishment, DC establishment, and cyber and globalists? Well, first off, over 75% of the RNC membership is new since Trump came on. 50% knew when he came on. And so they're all like me. They're all Tea Party guys or people who have been conservative. Our members include Harmeet Dillon, who's endorsed me, by the way. David Bossie, also, who's been one of Trump campaign's guys. TP USA and Action Executive Director. They've also endorsed me, by the way. But they've done great work. And that's Tyler. He's one of our youngest members in his early 30s. Then Morton Blackwell is one of our older members, one of the only guys from prior to 2016. But he founded the Leadership Institute and has trained more young conservative activists than any other human in the country. Who's on the RNC? It's amazing. You name it. We have a butterfly scientist on the RNC. We have a classic rock DJ. We have somebody who's been living off the grid for 30 years on the RNC. We just have a bunch of normal folks. In fact, we have more practicing physicians on the RNC than we have full-time political consultants. We have 5 practicing physicians and we have 3 political consultants on the RNC. And there are no members based out of the DC office. It's like me. I go to work as a cardiologist and I run around at night out to meetings and do that other stuff. We do have an office, of course, but I've only been there once in 7 years. We're volunteer, we're unpaid. And in our last election, with a big battle between Harmeet and Rana, we did elect a new co-chair, treasurer, budget chair, and council. Overall, despite what you hear repeated over and over and over, because clicks win, we know that, the RNC on average is more America First or Tea Party than the average Republican. We're over 75% new since Trump. So what do we do here? Fundraising. WinRed. Real quickly. WinRed is something that President Trump wanted to fight Act Blue. WinRed is strictly a processor. WinRed does not direct money. It only processes the money. It provides infrastructure so the candidates can work together, for example, and bundle with other candidates. Or you listening here can send to your email list something that says, for example, defeat Rashida Tlaib, she's, whatever, and donate to her opponent. And then there would be a campaign account or an election account set up for the general election opponent of Rashida in the general election. And this is what Act Blue was doing. So when Susan Collins, as the senator in Maine, who'd always been kind of a, moderate pro-life kind of choice candidate, and then when she went for Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court, the left went crazy because they, had pushed her hard to vote against him. And so Act Blue set up these accounts to fight against Susan Collins. And so as soon as she had a primary opponent determined, or her general election opponent, they had already raised $7 million for her opponent. And they weren't even picked yet. If you're a candidate, you can have a virtual store. You can have your bumper stickers. You can have your T-shirts. You can have your mugs, stuff with your, and WinRed will handle that as your virtual campaign store so that you don't have to do it. And it charges 3% to do all this stuff. And WinRed itself does not share data, but campaigns might. And it's not uncommon that campaigns do share data, but WinRed itself does not. And one of the key things about WinRed is we are so big now, we deal directly with the credit card company. We're one of only like maybe 15 organizations in the country that has cut out all of the various regional banks, the Wells Fargos, the Chases, the whoever's. And so we have direct access now to the credit card company. So WinRed has been a key tool in our battle against the left, and it's been unbelievably good. Every major federal candidate uses it, and Lots of state candidates use it as well. And now if you're a county candidate, you can use it. But the key thing, man, if you're a small candidate, you can use their store. It's unbelievable. Data. We have free data, and some of you may have gotten it. We make it available to the CD chairs, and if they don't get it to you, call me, and I can get you the link to the data, particularly if you're a county chair. We have the most updated data you can buy. We have the same data that the banks and the FBI uses for caller ID. We've increased our classifications. We've refreshed information like crazy. Is it perfect? No, it's not. A lot of people use I-360. And I-360, it's important to know, you pay a fair amount of money to use I-360, and they have great data. But that's because you're paying them to make it better. And so the more this data gets used, the better it is, because when you're walking up to a house and you see a bumper sticker on a truck, or you see a buck hanging from a tree, that gives you more information that might be available to someone who hasn't been walking past their house. So using this data with your Walk app is absolutely critical. On the money, it is hard to overemphasize how the progressive left is crushing Republicans. Because we hear all the time about, well, why didn't the RNC do this? Why didn't the RNC do that? The RNC doesn't do enough of X, Y, Z. In 2022, we raised about $280 million. Once you're running through all the FEC cycles and all the different accounts you have to do and follow all the rules, we ended up with $110 million last cycle. It's been nationwide. When you think about that, 110. Sorry, I got a phone right here. $110 million we had to spend nationwide. Keep that number in mind. This is why we don't do X, because of the budget. Ralph Warnock, you remember he beat Walker down in Georgia. And this is Ralph Warnock. He had $150 million in his campaign on the November account. One candidate, one state, $150 million. We had $110 million in the whole country. This is what we're up against. When you hear somebody say, why did the RNC do X? This is the reason. We were outspent 7-1 by nonprofits. I've actually done a Michigan analysis for 2016 on, and I'm presenting that at Turning Point Action. I did that for the RNC post-election analysis. The short version is that the RNC targeted Michigan as their #1 state. They turned all of their outside money on it. And 92% of the money in the elections 2016 and 2020 against Michigan, 92% was from out of state. These are the Senate races. Here was Georgia. And look at the ones we won. We won in Ohio being outspent 3.5 to 1. We won in North Carolina being outspent 2 to 1. Marco Rubio in Florida was outspent 80 million to 50 million. The left is awash in money, and we are not. The political operation, ton of work last year. One of the key things we did, we had community centers. These are 38 brick and mortar areas that were literal offices for some of these various communities of interest. So, for example, in Orange County, where in 2018 we got beat on, 2018 we got beat on ballot harvesting in California. We opened a couple of Asian Pacific, Southeast Asia community centers in Little Saigon and Orange County. And these things were unbelievable. I mean, it is now where Vietnamese families take their kids to learn Vietnamese dances and cooking. And so they have literally become part of the community, even though they've been started as a political operation. And so in 2018, compared with 2018, we moved Asian 17 points nationwide, Black voters 4 points, and Hispanic votes 10 points. And so we actually had a great benefit. And where we had these community centers, the data was dramatically higher than that. Some of these were like 35, 38%. This is nationwide, not in the community center area. This one right here, I mean, some of this you just don't get from the media because they're not going to tell you about it. But the ground game, which is the RNC's job, was unbelievably good in 2022, despite losing some very close things. We had a very high turnout We won the popular vote in the House by 3 points. And so we actually did very well, but that's not apparent from what you would hear about. And so here's the deal. In 2018 midterm, the Dems had an 8% margin over Republicans in the U.S. House votes. You just take all 435 offices for the House, and you look at how many votes they got. They had 8% more votes than we did. In 2022, we had 3 points more than they did. We had an 11% improvement in ground game 2018 to 2022. That's an unbelievable improvement. Never been an improvement like it. And in 2022, if you took all these House votes and you turned them into electoral votes, a Republican president would have gotten 209 electoral votes. If you took the U.S. House district votes and each state House votes determine the Electoral College, we would have a Republican president in 2022 election. I know how frustrating it is that we lost in Arizona and Georgia and Nevada, super close elections. I get that. But, in those states, and I could go forever on the inside data, in Arizona, the top vote getter was a Republican. In Nevada, the Republican winning governor had more votes than the Democrat senator. In Georgia, we won 7 of 8 statewide seats, and the top vote getters were all Republican. But we lost the Senate seat in Georgia, and we lost the Senate seat in Nevada, and we lost in Arizona because a high Republican turnout, top vote getters being Republicans in all those states, didn't translate over to some of our candidates. So election integrity, I'm going to spend some time on this, of course, because this is one we hear about all the time. And we had a huge effort last cycle on election integrity. We trained over 80,000 poll workers and poll watchers. We had an online, live, real-time issue resolution line where people called up that night and had things resolved. We were involved in 100 election integrity lawsuits. We had 38 in-state councils, and we had district director in all the various battleground states. We won just a zillion lawsuits. But let me just go a little bit about election integrity here. First off, the RNC is totally for a federal system, meaning each state gets their own laws. But the states are wildly different. And for example, you've probably all noticed how in Florida they have the election determined, at night, at 12:30, they got the final vote in, 100% counted. And that's because the elections in Florida are run by the counties, not by municipalities and townships like they are in Michigan, where we have about 2,000 approximately voting officials, with counting going on in approximately 20 or 2,000 locations. So in Florida, the Republicans were all in for years on saying, yeah, go ahead and start counting early. We can watch all 80, we can have a volunteer in all 83 counties being present while everything is being counted. In Michigan, we fought it like crazy for years because we couldn't get 2,000 volunteers to watch counting occur early in all these locations. So now, of course, we have a new law, and it's crazy, but the law is what we have now after the last constitutional amendment. Now, most of you have been around a little bit, recognizing some of the names. If you haven't, for 38 years, there was a consent decree against the RNC where we could not participate at all in election day security, ballot security, voter ID, anything. The gavel came down when I became a member. They took me straight into a room with the other new members, and the first thing they said is, we have this consent decree against us. You cannot mention voter ID. You cannot talk about illegal voting. You cannot talk about ballot security. You cannot talk about... These were the first words I heard as an RNC member. So for 38 years, the RNC had sit on its hand by some judge when the Democrats and all their nonprofits did everything they could for 38 years to break down election integrity, get rid of voter ID, and we were outspent hundreds of millions to zero during that time. And so finally, in the late teens, 2019-ish, that consent decree ended when the judge died. So in 2019, there was a committee on elections put together, chaired by Harmeet Dillon, who, as you know, on TV is an unbelievable lawyer. Has sued Google, is just unbelievable. She's great, incredible. And I was one of the 13 members on that. We put out a 60-page legally protected document to give our battle plan for the upcoming election cycles. You know, but here we are. We're coming after 38 years. We have no infrastructure. We've got nothing. So now we started filing lawsuits within months of this report coming out, because early 2020 was COVID, right? And for example, in 2020, the RNC sued Jocelyn Benson 3 times. We sued in the spring on signature matching. We sued on voter rolls. We sued on absentee ballot mailing, and we sued on all those. And we actually won all 3 of those cases against Jocelyn Benson. But naturally, they were all decided in 2021 after the election was over. So it didn't help us, but we won. So now in this cycle, we sent on December 8th a letter to Jocelyn Benson saying, you must comply with the National Voter Registration Act, and you have to clean the voter rolls. The law says you have to make a, quote, good faith effort to keep a clean voter roll, and they obviously didn't. But when we won that case, they did take 180,000 people off, which was a bigger margin than Trump lost by, of course. And so now we've already got our letter in for December 8th. And so now the clock started. And according to federal law, if she doesn't clean the voter rolls by 90 days, we can sue in federal court to enforce the National Voter Registration Act. So remember when Trump and, with all the legal battles were going on in the immediate post-election cycle time. And I hear this a lot on the conservative press, so I'll just cover this. The RNC raised $200 million and they didn't spend any money on election integrity. What happened to all the money? And so this is what happened post-election, post-2020 election. There was about $195 million raised in a joint fundraising committee between Donald Trump's organizations and the RNC. The RNC got 25% of the money. Trump's campaign and Trump Save America PAC got the other 75%. Out of that approximately $200 million, the RNC got $48 million. That was all raised, between election day and mid-December. And it was 48.1 actually million. We spent every penny. We spent money on recounts in Georgia, in Iowa, and in Wisconsin. We spent money on 600 staff on the ground in Georgia for the Walker rerun, and we spent tens of millions on election lawsuits. So we spent every penny of our 48 million. So when you hear someone say, what happened to the 200 million raised by the RNC? Well, it wasn't 200 million, it was 48. We spent every penny. 150 million went to the Trump campaign or Save America. We've had now a new committee, election integrity operations going. In 2021, we had 90 lawsuits in over 20 states. And in 2023 already, in this cycle already, we're in 69 election integrity lawsuits in 19 states. And here's what our opponents think of our election integrity, because I hear this on a regular basis, and that's why I'm spending some time on this. And I don't mean to talk so much because I'm really going fast here. But it's really important because this is what I hear over and over and over. And so I'm trying to communicate because we don't have the money. Remember the budget? We just don't have money being put out. We do have press releases on a regular basis, but we don't put out advertisements saying, what did we do in election integrity? But here's what Mark Elias says. He was bemoaning our litigation efforts, noting that already this year we filed more than 3 times the number of lawsuits in 2020 and 5 times the number in 2021, talking about going on the offense. So we are completely on the offense now. And so the Committee on Election Integrity, we put out a resolution laying out 21 points. I'll run through those super quick, just a couple of them. And then let me go there. So that leads into, we now have, for the first time ever, we have a permanent RNC Division on Election Integrity. This is staffed with attorneys, and now, in fact, we have a communications person on that committee, on that department. So we will be putting out a lot more on what we're doing. But this is not an election season only thing. This is a 365-day, 24/7 operation to continue our offensive effort. And it's a resource. Remember the budget. We don't have hundreds of employees out on this running around. We have incredible legal staff and people who are going to be resources to our great groups. And I know, like, Patrice Johnson has been in regular contact with, our election integrity director and some of the other groups. And so we are working with these local groups to be a resource. And for example, on the O'Halloran lawsuit, we just filed an appeal. We've already won. RNC has already run 2 appeals on that, but the Dems keep appealing and we keep going after it back. So we're on our 3rd appeal. We're going after winning our 3rd appeal on the O'Halloran lawsuit. We have 15 full-time election integrity directors in 15 battleground states, including Michigan. We were one of the first. Here's her address, mray@gop.com. Her deputy, Alex Richmond, gop.com. She just did her first training the other night. There was about 38 people on it, I think. So that was good. We also will have permanent state councils in each of the battleground states. So these will be attorneys from that state who are familiar with that state's laws, who will be on retainer to handle all of our statewide election integrity battles within that state. I mentioned the December 8th letter already. And I think this is one of the key things that people get confused with. And, because we have back up here, we have probably the best on the ground, grassroots, knocking on doors, checking addresses, pulling, check my vote. We literally have the best in the country on this grassroots stuff. There's just no question about it. We have unbelievable work going on with these guys, but we don't have the groundwork, boots on the ground to do this stuff. It must be these groups. But we can come in on our side of the team, on our position of the team, supply the lawyers and the resources and the other help to help make these things go and help in both directions where the lawsuits can be more effective based on some of the incredible data these guys have. I mean, the Check My Vote stuff is incredible. Patrice's stuff is incredible. O'Halloran stuff is incredible. Pat Colbeck is unbelievable. I mean, it's amazing. And so now we have somebody full-time coordinating with them with an office filled with lawyers who's able to help take care of this. We did great on lawsuits. Just a couple of the resolutions. Let me try something real quick. So here are some of the this is the resolution that we had. It's pages and pages. This is available on the website. But let me just highlight a couple things that we did in this resolution. Again, the RNC is 70% new since Trump. It's a bunch of Tea Partiers and grassroots people like me. We literally called out the work of the grassroots activists of the Republican Party in the problem with electronic voting procedures and systems. We're all in on it. You just need to, I'm covering it in such detail because we just need to spread the word, because I just get every day that we don't do anything on this. We've twice passed something against ranked choice voting back down here. We are absolutely all in on hand-marked, voter-verified paper trail that can be looked at and documented in every election for every voter. We're all in on geographically defined and voter ID. So we're all in on that, but it's a federal system. And unfortunately in Michigan, we now have some pretty crazy rules where, some of this stuff is drop boxes for every 15,000, up to 45 days of voting, 9 days in the ballot box voting, crazy stuff. So we got bank your vote. And so this is where we all are. This is what we all want, right? Everybody in here wants this. They want one election day with voter ID and absentee with cause. That's what we all want, but that's not what we have in Michigan. Some states have that. We don't. So we have a new ballot proposal, and I just want to emphasize ballot harvesting is not legal in Michigan. The RNC beat that one back. It's not part of the Constitution. And we beat it in a couple other states too, Arizona. It is legal in California, though, for example. So bankyourvote.com is the big program this year. for RNC is to push bank your vote, to get everybody to vote as early as they can and get their vote in so we can get the people who we know are going to vote first out of the way. And so we need to play the whole game, not just the last 2 minutes, because this is how the Dems have been beating us in some places, is they spend all their time getting the kids to vote who don't normally vote because they get all their regular voters in early. So this bank your vote thing, even though we are kind of uncomfortable with the idea, we'd like to go in there and put our thing in the machine. It's supported by Trump and every other major Senate and presidential candidate. And this is why, but we got to do each law. And this is the key, is because if you're a regular voter, and the data will show that you're a regular voter, and the campaigns in your Senate race or in your House race or your congressional district race, they will know you're a regular voter, and they want to make sure they will know you're a regular voter for them. So they want to make sure you vote. So as the days go by and you haven't voted, they start to send you information. Hey, don't forget to vote. Don't forget to vote. They may send somebody by your door. Hey, knocking on there, don't forget to vote. They may call you on the phone. Don't forget to vote. And so we want you to vote the first day you can, so your name's off the list, because the candidates find out who's voted already. And so they don't spend another dime, penny, or knock or phone call on trying to get you to vote. We want all of those resources turned on to people who we know would vote for us if they voted. And that's the point. We got to get those people out who vote half the time, but we know if they do vote, they will vote for us. So bank your vote. So for election integrity, we have protect the vote, we have bank your vote, and then key here, part of the bank your vote, the follow-up is Turning Point Action, not part of the RNC. They're an independent organization doing a great job. And they're going to chase the votes. And so when you bank your vote early and they know you're off the rolls, TP Action is going to have a whole plan. In fact, they have this conference going I'm flying out to tonight, where there's going to be 8 or 10 activists from the state of Michigan there with all the precinct level data in various counties. So we know exactly which counties and which precincts to go after where we have the most available votes to chase after. And this is absolutely, absolutely critical, that this happens. And so, for example, so protect the vote, you can go to this website, protectthevote.com. You can get our election integrity report and see what the 2021, there's another one in 2023, but you can go there, you can go to cases, you can find out about litigation. Boom, let's see what comes up first. All these cases, here's O'Halloran. Look at all these new ones we've got since October 19th, we're this many more. Okay, so you can find that on Protect the Vote. Bank your vote. I pulled up Michigan site. So this is Michigan site. Bank your vote has a site for every state in the country. So for example, in the state of Michigan, you can request your ballot, you can register to vote, you can get updates. And so here's the information about Michigan. It has all the laws that are true in Michigan. It has the countdown to the presidential primary. It tells you when the primary is. It has important dates in the primary. You could have requested your absentee ballot. You should be looking for your absentee ballot any day in the mail. You can start voting early on the 29th in a couple of days. You can go show up in a location and vote on the 17th. So we have this for every single state. And this is just revolutionary in terms of our ability to help drive the vote. So the RNC is spending a fortune on this kind of stuff, homing the laws and doing everything for each state. Okay, so that's it on election integrity. I'm just going to wrap up real quick here with a couple of things that are coming up. RNC Faith started in 2013, because this is another thing. RNC doesn't do any faith. 2013, we've been chasing votes through churches since 2013. We have a fly-in this week with David Barton, Ralph Reed, these guys speaking. We have monthly prayer calls, the second Tuesday of every month, if you're interested in that. Those have included Senator Cruz Hawley, and last time in January it was Speaker Mike Johnson led that call. And then here's one, write this down, February 10. I've invited State Party and arranged for State Party strategies to come into the state to do training in 2 different locations in the state on, if you're a county chair or a congressional district chair, you've been getting the handbooks I've been sending out, the 5 handbooks on data, finance, communications, digital, and political. that I've been sending out to the county and district chairs, and state party strategies will be coming in to answer questions and teach on whatever people want to learn more about with those topics. So there's just a ton of stuff happening here. Okay, so on the RNC, I've been on the Conservative Steering Committee since 2016. I was on the Executive Committee for 5 years. Been on the Rules Committee now, Committee on Elections, the Post-Election Analysis Committee. I did this 20-page write-up for the RNC. Back on the Election Integrity Committee, Grassroots Committee. Hosted a showing with David Bossie on Sucker Box. This is a movie that David Bossie produced. And I've only missed one meeting, or one vote, I should say, in 7 years. That involves a lot of the resolutions, election integrity, getting Cheney and Kinzinger out, the debate stuff. We've got in committee right now for this week's election to support our electors. Obviously, our Michigan electors are under the gun. I'm trying to help with that. Condemning the open borders, that's in committee right now to be voted on at this coming meeting. But without question, because obviously I want you to vote for me on March 2nd, but without question, the key thing is that without my efforts and my knowledge with the Rules Committee and the Executive Committee, we would be having 12 delegates for the National Convention instead of 55, and we would have 0 presidential candidates paying attention to us in any way. And then the second thing is that the term for me starts with the close of the election. And so if Trump had been declared the winner in 2020, I'd be out, right? I mean, I wouldn't want to run because it's time to have somebody new come, because you have a new presidential candidate with a new campaign and you need new people to be involved. And so the fact of the matter is I know all the Trump team and have been working with them all these years. And so, we should there's no reason to start over for the general election starting in the summer, August, September, October, November vote. So that was a ton of information on data, election integrity, fundraising, political operation, what the RNC actually does by rule, but what we do in practice. So, Conrad, man, I think I took a breath once in 45 minutes. I'm not sure.
I think
So
you
everybody
did.
take a breath, get your question in. I think, Conrad, are you going to handle the question and answer time? I see Trucker has a hand up, and I don't see what else is going on yet here.
Correct. I see Trucker Andy has the first hand up, and I'm going to ask him to unmute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Hey, Trucker.
Hey, Dr. Rob, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Congratulations on your radio show. You keep hammering it out of the park. That's awesome. I'm so glad
sir.
You stepped up.
Hey, thank you, sir. I have a question specific, Rob, to March 2nd at the state convention.
Yep.
Many of us saw President Trump's endorsement of Pete Hoekstra on his Truth Social page. How much involvement is the RNC going to take at the state convention in Detroit on March 2nd? What role will the RNC play?
Well, I think that is a fabulous question, and I think that is going to depend on how things go overall. But that March 2nd, one of the reasons that in my negotiations with the RNC on trying to keep our 55 delegates, one of the key parts of that was getting 39 of them out to the congressional districts, playing with the dates, trying to fuss under the rules. And the key part of that was to make these congressional district conventions be run by the congressional districts. So the congressional districts chairs should be putting together their convention. Now, we need an organized state party to count the votes and to certify those elections. And so I think the real answer will depend on how quickly the dispute is resolved regarding the in-state chair dispute.
Right. Now, if their lawsuit, because they did file it and they've asked for an emergency injunction for the judge to rule prior to March 2nd, which I'm sure is in order to facilitate perhaps a legal decision, it might be appealed. That's going to possibly go past the March 2nd deadline. So what if it's not resolved in the lawsuit and there's not a way to negotiate it at the convention? Is the RNC going to step in and try to be a facilitator, a mediator, and try to resolve it for the functioning of the convention itself by the state party?
I think there'll be absolutely no question that the RNC will make sure that our March 2nd allocation of presidential national delegates happens and has a certified vote. I don't have any doubt about that.
Okay,
Obviously,
so
Ron is
irregardless of the dispute over as to who the actual chair is, regardless of the vote of the delegates, it doesn't matter. Bottom line, end of the day, the function of the state convention is to simply get those delegates assigned so we fulfill those 39 seats, correct?
That's correct. That's
Okay.
correct. And the theory could be, and again, I'm you know, as you know, I've been totally neutral in the whole battle because
Yes.
my job is to be the conduit of information between the state and the national party in both directions. And if I take a stand, well, then all of a sudden somebody's going to look at me as not partial and maybe screening or filtering the information.
Right.
I'm also on the RNC Credentials Committee. And so it's not entirely clear where this is going to be resolved. And of course, if it comes to the Credentials Committee, I don't think anybody wants to walk into a jury box where the jurors have been taking a stance prior to the data being presented. So I've been neutral, and I haven't been involved in anything that's been decided so far, though I've passed on just reams of information. And they've had a lot of meetings about it. And I have no doubt that they are super aware of your issue is, are we going to get the March 2nd taken care of? And I think the main thing is I have no doubt that, President Trump is going to get virtually all the delegates, at least 40 to 45 of the 655, and he's going to definitely be putting pressure to make sure everything happens and that they're allocated appropriately.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I appreciate the answer.
Thank you, Trucker. Keep it up. I'm happy to come on your show sometime.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have other people with questions? Raise your hand.
I see Bill up in Presque. Bill, how you doing, man? Bill, you're muted. Sorry. So this is, let's see. I don't see, I can't see the chat for some reason. I'm not real fast on it.
We actually have so few here. I just asked everyone to unmute in case they can't figure out how to raise their hand.
Yeah.
Okay. So hi, Rob. This is Bill.
Hey, Bill.
I am unmuted, and I happen to be talking to you from Rashid Tlaib's district right now.
Oh, God.
Yeah, exactly.
What a disaster. Well, her district chair, I hope her district chair up with WinRed staff, and they put together some ads and emails and so forth to raise money for Rashida's general election opponent. So they're using that, and so hey, if you're in the 13th, send them to the 13th district website, or 12, and they'll be able to do that.
Well, I'll be heading down to a football party here in a few minutes, and I'll definitely spread the word.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for all you do. Thanks for today, and I think you and I go back probably pretty close to 20 years now. Appreciate the fact the RNC is going to take a wait and see position what's going on in the state here. I heard Randy talk about a court challenge. Is that scheduled for tomorrow? Are we correct in that?
I think the first court date is on the 30th, which I think is Wednesday, or is that Tuesday? I'm not sure. And so the way it stands right now, what has happened so far? The legal department at the RNC, which are staff people, right? They're not elected, they're hired staff. Our chief counsel, who happened to graduate from U of M Law School, has a lot of political experience. He's been a Senate campaign, senatorial committee attorney, and some other stuff, but he's been with the RNC for 2 years. And then he has 2 or 3 staff attorneys who are full-time with the RNC. They're all like super gunners, of course. But his junior staff has gone through reams of information, put together, all this stuff. And then the chief counsel, the senior counsel, the general counsel, a couple people from the chair's office, the special assistant to the chair, the chief of staff, they've looked at all of this. And so none of these people are members of the RNC, though. Right? These are staff people. So the staff people looked at it and said, well, you know, it looks to us like, you know, they crossed their T's and dotted their I's on the J6 meeting. Oh, hey, we're just staff. We're not making the decision. And so at this meeting this week, Ronna is going to appoint a special committee for the Committee on Contents or the Committee on Credentials. It's not totally clear what it's going to be, to review all the data and papers put together by the legal department and come to some sort of decision. And I think one of the key things here, it's a subtle difference, but it's a big difference, is the RNC. Remember on the very first slide of it, I had the rules up there, and I mentioned that RNC only intersects with the states in a couple places,
Right.
seating members, defining allocation, and selecting delegates. There's no other legal connection. And so the RNC seats members to the committee. Okay, so that's what this committee will do. Obviously, Trump made his position clear, but this committee will meet and they will seat either Christina or they will seat Pete. And but the courts meet before that committee meets, or who knows? The court might say, and I'm not a lawyer, obviously, but maybe the court will have made some sort of decision that will go into appeal. So that's kind of where the process is right now. But everybody's fully aware of the March 2nd timely issue that we have.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Have fun at the game. I'm going to be on the plane. Oh, I'll be able to watch it on the plane. Yeah, good. I'll be able to see it. I think Rick over there.
I see with your hand up, Rick. Go ahead.
Yeah, question I had was prior to the January 20th meeting where Pete Hoekstra was elected as chair, the first district had a EC committee meeting on the 18th where they voted to remove Sue Aller as chair of the first district. And that happened before the January 20th meeting. And my understanding is that Sue showed up at the January 20th meeting as the first district chair, and there were proxy assignments. And it seems to me that would be an inappropriate action that would have an impact on what occurred on the 20th. Has anything been brought up about that?
Well, I know that just the other day after Trump's post on Truth Social, I know that Jim Copas, the executive director, had a 22-page letter back to the RNC. So obviously, whatever, and both sides of the dispute have sent in just tons of information. So, the RNC will react to whatever information has been sent in and evaluate it. I mean, I know, and that's one of the things that's confusing on some of the stuff with the internal rules being in conflict with, chairs being picked by the district. For example, Sue and Dare are both experienced U.S. House or state House reps, right? I mean, they know about politics. They know people get voted in, voted out. And I know Sue and Dare have been talking since the change in leadership. So, So I know that the first district did that. They voted out Sue and voted in Dare. Now, how that impacts, because because other chairs were removed, and I don't know the answer, because in the state party rules, there's one thing where state chairs shall be state committee members, and then there's another one where it says district chairs are elected by their committees. So we may have some open right now, and so if Jim Copas has sent in that specific thing, then they'll certainly be evaluating that. I've encouraged them to go point by point in whatever Jim has sent over, whatever their team has sent over, so that everybody has the same information. Because until the members get a look at it, it's kind of a different viewpoint than having staff on. So that's a long way of saying I don't know what the answer is, but that's the kind of thing that if that's been submitted, they will have to adjudicate how that all plays out.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Rick, for being involved. The city of Oscoda must be in Oscoda County, right? Is that right? It must
Well,
be.
I'm up in Sheboygan.
I
so-
know you are, but you're close. You're kind of next door. Yeah, I just the Cleta Air Base or the Cleta facility up there is insane with all the people.
Yeah.
I got almost 2,000 people up there.
So do we have other questions? I've opened the floor and you're welcome to unmute yourself.
Yeah, well, if there's questions, great. If there's no questions, that's great too. I just want to thank everybody for being involved. I mean, you just took an hour, and I took 2 breaths in 45 minutes, and now I can unzip my coat and take a breath. But I do appreciate you coming on and getting some firsthand information, because I know how the media is, conservative or mainstream, and there's certain business models that know what statements drive traffic and clicks, and it's unfortunate, but sometimes when I look at the conservative media, they're a bit underinformed, and I feel like I'm reading about the mainstream media and Trump. But I hope today you got some straight info and some stuff that you haven't heard before, because that's my intention, is to get information that's generally not something that you've heard out in the media, or that we don't have money to be just sending out, putting ads out or doing whatever. That's my job to help communicate it to you. And so I've been trying to do that. Same with all the training materials and that sort of thing. And I see Gary, Gary in Newego, have you been getting handbooks? How are they? He's muted, but he gave a thumbs up on that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No,
Looks like
I'm
Sheila has her hand raised. Go
Yeah.
ahead, Sheila.
Okay, I'm Sheila Jenner from Mason County. I'm a chair there.
Yeah.
Quick question. I feel with everything that's been going on over the last several weeks, a lot of the trickle down effect is coming down on the county chair's shoulders. And we have, of course, our county conventions coming up, and I'm getting questions about the March 2nd convention, that if the chair has been recognized, okay, and we go on to the March 2nd convention, but the precinct delegates do not approve who was recognized, who is next then to continue the convention in line to keep it going? Because I know I was at the convention that Weiser got booed off the stage, and a parliamentarian or somebody else had to finish the convention because
Yeah.
they wouldn't allow him to do that. So what is that next in line person? Or
Well,
who?
first off, Sheila, thanks for stepping up to be the chair. Have you been getting the handbooks?
I've been, my executive committee, my precinct delegates are pretty good. I'm kind of like trying to stay on that, not taking sides and trying to just.
No, that's good. I'm just saying, hey, I've been sending out the handbooks to the county
Oh,
chair.
yes,
Yeah, good. Okay,
yes,
well,
thank you.
in part of the negotiation to keep our 55 delegates, the March 2nd rules were supposed to be fixed for each of the 13 districts. Because obviously Rana was a state chair and had been to meetings when she wasn't a state chair, and she fully understands how some of our county or district conventions get. Some are done in 10 minutes.
Yeah,
And some take 4 hours. Yeah, because of the battles that go on. So part of that negotiation was to make the congressional district convention rules the same for every congressional district, and not have certain parts of it be eligible to be open. I don't have them in front of me right now, but if they should be available. They should be the same as what was sent to the Mackinac meeting for the state committee meeting, because they were voted on at the Mackinac Island State Committee meeting.
we
It
have.
came from the policy committee. And so there were no changes at Mackinac on the policy committee's convention rules. So if you can't find it, because the only way I ever find it is by going back to the Mackinac meeting materials and finding the rules. And that was passed when, before the conflict. And so Andy Siebold was the chair
Mhm.
then, so he certainly has the rules. But county rules, I think, are pretty much open. I don't remember that we fixed the county rules, but again, I'd have to look at them again.
Yeah, we do have all the rules. I just, and from what I understanding, all the congressional districts will meet separately. They aren't
Yes.
going to meet in one.
Yeah. And that was another big part of the negotiation, and there was actually some conflict around that. A lot of the congressional district chairs, they wanted to have the meetings in their own district because they knew they run their own meetings. They knew they could do it. They knew they could do it cheaply. They didn't have to worry about the party's finances. They didn't have to worry about any of that stuff. So, a lot of the districts would have been able to do it in a free location in a church or a school or something like that, and spend $200 on donuts or something. Because the largest meeting would only be about 500 people.
Okay.
Because I think the largest district has 240 delegates and 240 alternates, so they're probably not going to have all 500.
Okay.
So that was a big discussion, and in the end, it came down that all of the meetings would happen in the same location. And the against was, hey, bad weather, going to cost more, party finances. The for was clearly, hey, we might get Donald Trump or Vivek or Nikki Haley walking into your room saying, hey, I'm Vivek, I'd love your vote. Or I'm Donald Trump, I'd love your vote. I don't know if Trump will come or not. I mean, it's going to get most of them. I doubt it. But that was the big reason for have them in one location.
Okay.
So I know they've rented Huntington. They have a contract with Huntington Place or Convention Center or whatever it is.
Okay, thank you.
Roxanne, I see your hand is up. Please unmute.
Hi there, Dr. Steele.
Roxanne, I met Roxanne at Mackinac.
Yes, and you answered a lot of questions on stage that weekend. It was a great leadership conference. And so I want to thank you. And I also want to thank Wexford Chairwoman Emily DeBauer for putting this together, because the more information we get, the more knowledge, the more power we have. And it's really the responsibility, just like Sheila said, on all county chairs to get this information to all of our members and all our precinct delegates. So it's a big job. And I always want to try and make sure I do my very best. I was paying attention, but some of it went really fast, Dr. Steele.
Well,
So,
and
if you could remind me, I believe you mentioned something about county chair training on February 10th, which I saw was a Saturday. Could you
Yes.
go over that again, please?
Yes, I have coming into the state. One thing that's happened new in the RNC is we have a county chair fly-in, and we are allowed to invite select chairs to be flown into a meeting where they get specific training, and that had happened already. And we invited people with open seat, big counties with open seats, and so in Tom Barrett's district and in Kilday's district. So that's already happened, but we need training here in the state. We haven't had a political director with a state party. The RNC did just, by the way, hire a full-time political director for the state, and this will be an RNC employee, not a state party employee. And so they've just started last week, so we'll be getting that. But that's a long way around to knowing that we need more training. I've invited the state party team who wrote those 5 handbooks to come into the state in 2 geographically distinct locations, one hopefully further north, one somewhere south central, to allow district and county chairs or other interested people. I mean, hey, candidates can come. I mean, anybody can come, as far as I'm concerned, and because the more people that have the information, the better it is. And I don't care. I don't think it needs to be a chair personally. I think we need all hands on deck here. So they will be coming in for about a 3.5 hour training session on questions that people send me or based off of those 5 handbooks. And we'll go as long as we can based on the geographic distance between the 2 that we're going to have to drive, between, and then still be able to have 2 meetings in one day. So I think one will probably be early-ish morning, and then we'll be hopping in the car and driving, somewhere else for the next one. I'm waiting to hear where they are. The staff has to make their travel arrangements for that kind of stuff. So it's a great opportunity. I mean, we've never had that in the state before, and so I'm happy to help arrange that because there's been and that's what I say about this dispute. it's a dispute. We have disputes all the time. This one has gotten a little out of control, and I wish it didn't happen. And it's not helpful for the deal in general. But it doesn't impact whether you go knock on a door or make a phone call or work with your local county, to do what you need to do. I mean, you might have school board elections, and these are critical elections, where there it's like a scrimmage. I have candidates come to me and say, "Oh, I'm so lucky I don't have a primary." I'm thinking, what? You want to play a game without a scrimmage? You need your team to go through other elections, whether it's school board, dog catcher, or whatever county commissions, to practice what it is that needs to be done to win an election. Turning out the votes, banking your vote early, doing all these things, so that when it comes to the real game, when it comes to the playoffs and the Super Bowl and the primary and the general, that we're not just flubbing around knowing what's going on. So yeah, I mean, we need people to to practice. We need scrimmages.
Agree.
Okay, last chance. Any other questions?
Gary, I grew up in Greenville in Macomb County, so I used to drive through Newaygo on M37 before 131 was there to go to Big Star Lake. And of course, we got Russell Kirk in Mecosta County right next door. All right, well, everybody, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your support on March 2nd. It's important. I think we got to get Trump in there again. And I'm a small piece of the puzzle, but definitely a piece who's totally engaged already with his campaign and knows everybody. So I'd appreciate your support, letting people know about keeping the 55 delegates, getting 39 of them out to your congressional district, and getting Trump in. And I know that people are upset about this dispute, and I've been called every name under the sun from each side because I won't take a stand. And people call me a weak, and I said, listen, it would have been way easier for me to take one side or the other because it would have shut up half the people. But instead, I'm getting it from both sides, full time, all the time. And the weird thing about that is that you can pick any day last week, any one day last week, and I got more emails, texts, and phone calls in that one day than I did in the 6 years of being on the RNC for state committee business. As a national committee
And I
man, my
must
role
admit,
in the state committee.
I'm guilty of doing that to you.
Well, no, but that's it. But
And that's how we're here.
for this, it's good. But I'm just saying, the national committee typically, we sit on the credentials committee for the state committee as a more impartial statewide person because we're all over the state and we meet people from all over the state. And so we're there as a conduit, not to be the arbiter of the dispute. We're trying to get it to a resolution. And so, believe me, it would have been 50% easier had I taken a side. It would have just been one half only beat me up instead of two halves. But I appreciate your support. Thanks for being on, and go Lions.
Well, we appreciate all you do. And on behalf of the Wexford County Republican Committee, I'd like to thank you for spending the time with us today and giving us this vital information. It's been absolutely great. This now concludes our Zoom meeting. Thank you all very much.
And I think you recorded and it might be available, did you say?
Correct.
Okay. And that might be an option for some of the people who said, hey, I've got some information. And maybe you could, well, the audio is fine, whatever, but the PowerPoint is fast, without the audio, whatever you decide.
Exactly.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you all very much.
Yeah, bye-bye.